Okay. So welcome everyone who has logged in to attend our online Safe Sanctuaries webinar training for LCAs. We very much appreciate you participating, and hopefully you'll find the information we're going to share to be very valuable to your role as an LCA. The first place that I want to start, we have been sending some emails out to try to let you know information as we kind of come across maybe a trend that a couple different LCAs or so might not seem to be aware of something. One of our key ones is that we need to let everyone know and kind of understand that there's 4 roles of every LCA. In the beginning, because there's so much setup to just getting the software set up, a lot of times to make it sort of manageable in terms of information, we would say to everybody that the LCA's role is to initialize or start someone on the training. And we just want to make sure that it's clear that everybody understands that also there's a couple other steps that the LCA does. So the LCA has access to the local church online software, and that software gives the LCA the ability to initialize or start someone on the training process, the ability to monitor training of applicants and that their process is being completed, their background screen, their references, did they do all their training chapters. The other part of it is that when the information comes in on an applicant, you have the ability to review the information. And we're going to go through the detail of this, but you can review in the software the application, the background screen, and the references. The 4th step is that if all the information that you review is clear, then you enter the certified date on the applicant. So there's those 4 roles, and we've found that sometimes LCAs were not aware. They would ask us if a file is in pending, why is that? And so not really seeing that if it's a local church file in pending, that they are the ones that review and are able to go ahead and certify a file if it's a local church certification file and then it's completed. We're going to show you a page that where you log in to get started, and wanted to mention to you all, some of you that are already using the software regularly may notice this, that as we go, the software is being updated. The IT developers, Lori and Al, are programming and adding tweaks to the software as we go. So one thing on the login page for the local church associates, we've added in the upper right-hand corner, there are 3 video clip icons. Hopefully those little pictures look like a video camera, and you can click on those before you ever log into your local church online software, and there is about a 3-minute little instructional video that will show you how you use the software. And those are very new. They've only been there probably a week or so, but we wanted to point those out as a resource. Some of those video clips are the same ones that were available on the conference Safe Sanctuary web pages, but now they're right embedded in the software. So if you were going to have a second LCA at your church, those can be helpful. So want to make sure you know about those resources, and then we can go ahead and we'll log into the software. And we want to review the settings page with you. There are 4 aspects to the settings page. Those of you who are already using the software are past needing these settings, but the settings page is where you indicate if you're using the local church online software for conference training and local church training, and so those are these settings. The second step is where many of you already have provided a utility bill, or we've really updated that to say that an insurance document, insurance declaration page works the best. So that's been provided. The third thing is where we have you upload your local church policy. That's part of the settings page. And then the fourth thing is Once we get your branch account back, and the company is now called First Advantage. I'll still be saying First Advantage LexisNexis, so you know that I'm talking about the screening company. But they had a merger with First Advantage. Once we receive a welcome email, which you as the LCA receive from First Advantage, and they are supposed to remember to copy me on that email, then we will enter, and your local church policy is entered or uploaded in the software, then we will enter the branch account. And then I send you an email that says your software is all set up and you're ready to use the software. So we have LCAs at all different points in this process. So some people have already been using the software and have questions. The main thing we're going to focus on is how you use the software once it's all set up and in place. And we're still available for phone calls and emails after this session, depending on where you're at in the process. But we're going to focus on how you use the software. So, Al, can we go into where the SS participants page is?
There we go.
Okay, so we noticed that the church settings button is right below the log off over here in the lower left-hand corner, a little bit over to the left, Al. The church settings, I was just showing up what that page was, that we were just how they get back to that. Anytime you change or revise your policy, you can go in here and upload a new version if you need to. So just so you know that's available. Okay, under the Safe Sanctuary participant tree, there are purple umbrellas, and usually there's 4 categories. It might depend on whether you have local church certified people or not, whether you have 4 categories, but most churches will eventually have all 4. You can click on the purple umbrella or the little chevron to the left, and it will expand the tree. The SS Online in process is for anybody you start or initialize on the process. And so once you initialize somebody, you'll know that they are in process, and you'll be able to follow them because they'll show up in your in process list. The next category of people you'll have is Safe Sanctuary Church. Those are people that are in the local church certification process. The next umbrella down is people that have gone through or are going through Safe Sanctuary Conference certification. And the 4th umbrella down is other church members that are not certified. And this will be anybody that's been in the database, maybe entered by the district staff because they attended a charge conference and had a leadership position. Some churches have mentioned that occasionally they have people on this list that have left the church or are deceased members. And because of the nature of the database as a permanent record, for legal reasons, we cannot delete or remove those people. So you just disregard the names you don't need, but you want to highlight anybody on this list first when you go to add a certification, because we don't want to create duplicates in the system. That if we have duplicate records, it can cause problems with people being able to proceed with their training. Okay, so I think the next thing I want to point out is that there are 3 boxes in the center. The first one is personal information, and I call that demographic information. So it can have the address, email, date of birth, just basic information about the applicant. The middle section is called records. If the person has had a conference record before or happens to be like a local church associate, whatever records sanctuaries will show up in the middle section. The 3rd section down are called process steps. We have recently, thanks to Al and Lori, added to make this a little more obvious and helpful. We've added green font, green ink to the font. So on Local Church Associate, when it's in green, the records below are related to the Local Church Associate process. If you highlight SS Online in process and click on that, and it's green, then all the records in the box below pertain to that SS Online process. If you go over to INIT under that section, you'll notice that the person was initialized for local church and activities, and so they have both types of certification selected. So we can close this. And you'll notice on the SS online records in the middle that if you go clear over to the right-hand side, the both is there, and that means they're going to be they were initialized for both conference and local church. Al, can we go to an example that shows local church and conference records?
Sure. I think this one right here. Give us one of each.
Okay, so notice that the Safe Sanctuaries Conference, it says CONF in the middle, and then pending. If you go clear over to the right, there's a C. So there's two ways you know that's a conference record, because it has CONF and then the C at the end of the line. Let's click on the next one down, the church record. And it has Safe Sanctuaries Church, so it's a local church record. And clear over to the right, there's an L for local church file. Let's go back to the conference record once. And I wanted to point out that there are many people that have been conference certified before, and this note in the records section just alerts you to the fact that as an LCA, you are not authorized or able to see any information on a conference certification record. So that's just to be clear that you won't be able to see that. The file on somebody who's initialized for local church and conference is split into two separate records, and the local church LCA reviews the local church file and will review the information and make a certification decision on the local church record. On the conference side of the file, the Conference Safe Sanctuary Office reviews that record and makes a determination on whether they can be conference certified. So they become two separate processes at that point. We're going to go to showing how you review, no, I'm sorry, I skipped a step. We're going to do how you initialize certification. So that's the first thing, and most LCAs are aware that one of their roles is that they start the certification process for somebody. The way the process of software flows is through an email address. So the pastors received an email with a login, which is a username and a password and a website, and they designated you as an LCA. You received an email, and it had your username and password. So what you're going to do now to initialize somebody, are we going to do Michael Alberts, Al?
Probably he's pending, so that's going to be nasty. We could initialize Anna Lee, who has no record at all, or we could initialize someone with a previous certification. Your choice.
Let's do Anna Lee. So Anna Lee is highlighted by the fact that we clicked on her name under other church members, and we're going to go up to the green cross or green plus where it says add new certification. And when you click on that, it's going to give you the option. It says, do you want to initialize a new certification process or add a new certification type for Anna Lee? And you're going to say, yes, we do. And it says that Anna Lee already has an existing email address. Please update the email if it has changed. That's really crucial that you know what email address the person's using and that you have it correctly typed in, because again, it all flows by email. So go ahead and click OK. And notice that Anna Lee has her first name, last name. There's a username that you set up. We suggest that the username be all lowercase because it makes it a little bit simpler for the learner that's going to get the email. It is case sensitive, so if you do use a username like Anna Lee, she has to make a capital A and a capital L in order for that username to work. Again, you'll put her email in and you'll enter it twice to confirm it. And we won't do save just yet because we're also going to do what activities is the person going to be involved in. So you'll select under, if she's local church, that is the reason you're putting her through certification, you'll select any of the reasons there. And those reasons are a guideline to help you select the right certification type. They're not meant to really be a permanent exact record. So if there's not an exact choice, you can click something that's close just to get it a local church reason. Under conference certification, you can select, like, if they're going to go to the upcoming WOW, or they're going to go to confirmation, or any conference or district activity, you would select one of those. Let's go ahead and make them for both local church and conference. So they're going to go to WOW, and notice that the box automatically checks up at the top for local church and conference. And let's do save. And notice when you do save, you'll get a message that says an email was sent to your learner. So this is the applicant that needs to go through training. And the email goes out to her with her login information, which is 2 pieces, a username and a password, and she also gets the website to go to. One of the things we came up with today that's really important for the LCA to recognize, where you log in to access this software is a unique login, and only the LCAs have access to that. The learner logs into a different web page, and it's a different location for learning. And I'm going to send a blast email out to you all, kind of highlighting those 2 pages separately. But somebody was assisting a learner today and trying to have them log in through their LCA email, through their LCA software, and that doesn't work. So this software is really for the LCA to manage the process. And we're going to show you a few more things you can do in this software to manage the process.
Okay. And Nancy, I just brought up that email that was generated when we initialized Anna Lee.
The password that the person receives is also case sensitive. So anytime there's a capital letter, they have to type in a capital. Anytime there's a lowercase letter, they have to type in a lowercase letter. They cannot copy and paste it. Like, all of us want to do that because it's a little easier, but it's much more likely to work if they type in the password. Mm-hmm. So just if they call you up and say, I can't log in, that's kind of a common, frequent problem people have. These are kind of the hints that we give people, is about case sensitive and those kind of things. Okay, let's go to another thing on initialized. If somebody has been initialized for local church certification, we now have the ability under the green cross or green plus that you can add, say somebody is local church certified and they did that this summer for VBS, and then now it's October, November, and they need to go to the WOW event and they need conference certification. You can click the green cross, green plus sign, and you have the ability to add conference certification. And it asks you, do you want to add a new certification type? And you click yes. Now, we've only had this ability for a couple weeks. It's a very new feature. And so as an LCA that's been using the software, if you haven't noticed it, it's because it's very new. So new functionality. Go ahead and click yes. We want to add a certification type. And it looks like this person already had both, maybe, Al?
Yeah, I didn't have a good example, so I went ahead and used him.
That's okay. So just so that you all know that that's a possibility now, so just an option in the software. Mm-hmm. Now we're going to review how you monitor somebody's progress. Mm-hmm. And who did we use last time?
Well, we have a pending record, which is ideal for this, unless you want to look at, or we can look at an in process first.
Let's do the pending, and that brings up a point. So many of our LCAs did not realize, they would say, why is somebody in pending? And they didn't realize that pending is like your to-do list for local church certification. So when somebody is in pending, that means all the steps are complete and the file is ready for you to review. If you look at the, we have Safe Sanctuaries Church highlighted in green, that's the local church certification record. So the process steps below that go with that record, you can go down and notice under the completed column over to the left, let's do that first. When a date fills into that column, it's like a check mark, and it means that step has been done. And then, especially when the all steps complete has a date in it, that's kind of a hint, as well as it goes into pending, the pending status, that it's now ready for the LCA to review. We're going to go over to, and we've recently added green highlights to 4 sections in particular that the LCA reviews. The application, the background screen, the references, and you're looking to see that their training is completed. So we're going to click on the application record, and you can grab the scroll bar to the right and pull that down so that you can see more of the information. For you all at the local church, you probably know your people pretty well. For us at the conference level, for a conference certification, we often want to know maybe how long have they been at your church and that type of thing. On the clergy questions, for the most part, you're always going to see no to those questions. Any pastors are required to be conference certified, and they're required to be initialized through the conference Safe Sanctuary office. So for confidentiality and privacy, the LCAs do not initialize pastors, and you're not able to see their records and that kind of thing. They also are not required to be local church certified, although we know that pastors work very closely with helping update local church policies, and they're very familiar with them. What you review as an LCA under the self-disclosure questions, any questions in here, they are about criminal record activity, and an all clear is if somebody answered no to those questions. So you're looking over to the right that everything was answered no, that there was no criminal record. Often you'll find a yes. One of the more common ones is, has your driver's license been suspended or revoked within the last 5 years? Any yes on these questions makes the file an issue file where there's more research that you need to do, more follow-up information needs to be obtained. So we'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. So let's close that screen. The other thing you want to review is under BKGRD, that's background screen results. And there are 3 areas in a background screen that you need to review. One is Social Security identity verification.
Whoops, that's not it. I'm sorry, I'm looking for the one that I had saved earlier. Go ahead.
Yeah. Was it Angel or was that, I don't know.
No, we can't look at background screens in this demo database because everybody's fictitious here, so we couldn't get a real screen on them.
Right. Oh, you had Bev.
Yeah, somewhere I've got a snapshot. I've got to find that.
There you go.
So there's three parts to the criminal record. There's a county search and then a national criminal record, and that includes a national sex offender check. And we're going to show you a clear background result. It'll have pass in all 3 sections. If there's a review, you'll usually see review under Social Security verification. Oftentimes it's when you go out to look at the LexisNexis, which is now First Advantage website, you'll see that their maiden name, that's the most common one, is that it'll show a maiden name instead of their married name. And we verify that if on their application we ask them to list maiden name. So if we can verify that, then we consider that okay. Then under county or national criminal check, if there's a fail, then that means that something was found on the result, and you will need to log in and go to the LexisNexis website to see the criminal record results. And we have an 800 number in case you don't have your welcome email with your login for LexisNexis website or First Advantage website. And you can log in with your branch account, or not log in, you can call them, give them your branch account number and your name. And because when we set up your branch account as the LCA, we sent them your name, they'll know that you're authorized, help you get a login password so that you can go to the website. That 800 number, and we're going to type it in the chat window as well. We can close this background screen.
Okay.
The number for First Advantage is 1-800-853-2414. So make sure you keep track of that number. That's for customer service First Advantage. After you review the background screen, it's clear. The next thing you want to review is the references. All laity are required to have one pastor reference and one general reference. The pastor reference, the format for pastor and general reference are the same. The first question is how long have you known the person? The second question is have you observed them working with children and youth? And then the other questions are, does the person use appropriate verbal and visual language with children, youth, and vulnerable adults? We ask about appropriate use of touch, and is the person trustworthy and responsible, etc. You all can kind of read the detail of those questions. It needs to be marked that the person is always on that, which is considered clear. And all the way at the bottom, number 10 is if it says I would with no reservation, that's kind of a summary question of all the questions, then that means their reference is clear. If there's anything marked other than always, and if it's marked I would with some reservation or I would not recommend this applicant, then that's an issue file and that requires more follow-up. On this file, it's clear, so let's go ahead and close that. And you also review the general reference, so click on the second reference. This format is the same as the pastor reference in that it starts out with the first question, how long have you known the person? Have you witnessed them working with children and youth? And you're again looking that it says always all the way down as a response. And you can, again, drag to the right on the scroll bar so you can read clear to the bottom. And it says I would with no reservations, so that's also a clear reference. So you can close that. And the next thing you can do is enter a certified date, because you've now been able to review all those 4 critical areas that we highlighted in green. Also, I didn't mention, but under training and right underneath background, it says completed. You want to make sure it does say completed there in that kind of rusty red color. If it said that they had only done 3 of 8 training chapters or 4 of 8 or 2 of 8, then they're not all done yet. They need to finish their training. And the all steps completed will not have a date kind of as a check mark that it's all done. So then to enter a certified date, you can use that little calendar to the right. Usually you're entering the date for today's date because that's the date. Today is the day that you're certifying the person's file. It will automatically calculate a 4-year expiration date, and it always goes to the end of a quarter. So for October, the end of the quarter is December 31st, and it's doing 4 years from the training date. So from 2013, 4 years from now, the expiration date is 2017. So you'll do save. On a clear, all clear, when there's no issue, you don't need to make a note on that file. It's pretty routine that everything was fine. We're going to talk about if there is an issue file. Al, do you want to talk about the DAISY steps a little bit here? Maybe just explain.
Sure. Special process steps. And I'll read these because they're grayed out, and that has to do with the fact that we've got a demo database going on, and we don't have something linked right, but yours should be available. Other than certifying, there are 6 other dispositions that you can put on the file. If someone starts the process and never touches it, walks away from it, or maybe they move and leave your church, whatever, you don't have to wait the full year for it to expire. You can mark it abandoned, and essentially that just kind of gets it out of your way. It sets it aside. You can block a person's certification, and that's about the hardest block or rejection that you can note. The intention of blocked, it's a message to everybody in the future that this person should not be certified, um, not even in the future. And that would be dependent upon you finding something on the record that would lead you to that conclusion. You can deny their certification. It's not as hard as blocked. Maybe someone had 2 or 3 driving violations, and you thought, I don't know about them, but just deny them. If they clean up their driving record, 2 years later come back through, you might say, okay. And why is driving important? Well, maybe they're in a position to be driving some of the kids around. Well, you want to be cautious of that. There are a variety of reasons why you might deny someone as opposed to blocking them. But essentially, it leaves the door open for the future. I'm going to skip to the bottom. If someone is already certified and a charge is brought against them, you probably will want to suspend their certification while you investigate the charges. The charges may be false, in which case you can reinstate their certification, or they may be true, in which case you can revoke their certification. So those are the 6 special steps, or Nancy likes to call them the daisy steps because that looks like a yellow-orange daisy. So those are things that you can put on a file other than certifying the person.
A couple other points to mention here. Once you have certified a file, you want to send communication to the applicant to let them know that they are local church certified. And you can do that by email. You can develop a little letter, whatever works the best. We are working on having that be able to be automated out of the software, so we should have that in the future. We wanted to let you know that you now have the ability to change email address. As of last week, this is a very new feature. Al, if you can click on User Account Management. Some of you who have been LCAs for a while, you had to contact us here at the Safe Sanctuary office if you accidentally typed in a wrong email, or they changed their email, or just whatever happened, they weren't receiving them and you wanted to try a different email address. Now you're able to just change the email here in the User Account Management, and when you hit Save, the software will use your the current accurate email address for the person. So that's a really nice feature that's now available. We really thank Al and Lori for getting that to us. Very, very helpful. When a file becomes an issue file, you can close that window, Al. Well, I guess, do you want to point out another feature there is that you can also reset the password?
You can send the current password to the user, and you can also reset the password to something new if they've lost it or forgotten it. Be careful which sequence you do these in, because if you send their current password and then you reset their password, you've just sent them the old password that you've replaced. So you do want to be cautious of that.
Sometimes I've noticed that a learner will have trouble with their password, and sometimes it works to reset their password. Maybe it just changes a little bit the letters that they're having to type in, and it just can clear a block for them to get online. So that's just kind of a helpful problem-solving thing we've come across. If you have an issue file and you need to take the information to your local church certification authority, there's a Print All button there next to the User Account Management, and it will print all the forms out for you. So you can take that to your certification authority meeting. So that's kind of a nice little friendly feature that's available.
Okay. Nancy, we do have, I think it's 3 questions that have been asked. Do you want to cover those now?
Sure.
Lindsay, are you there and you want to read those back
I
to us?
am. Yep. I have one from Donna Hilton. She's asking, can I go back in to certify someone for local church? Oh, sorry. Can I go certify someone for local church activities after they were denied certification at the conference level? Did you understand that? Because my screen popped down on me and then it came back. So.
Conference certification and local church certification are separate, and so it is up to the local church to decide if they want to use an applicant at the local church level. So conference certification only denies somebody for district and conference activities.
And then again, when do they need to go and call the First Advantage number?
So let me talk about that. Everyone should have received a welcome email once their branch account is set up with LexisNexis. Now, many LCAs are at different places with this process. If we haven't received an insurance document from you and submitted that to LexisNexis, you won't have a branch account number yet. But if you're already using the software, then you received a welcome email from LexisNexis with your login information for that website. When you need to go to First Advantage website is if something shows up on a background screen that it's not a pass, but it'll show fail, and that means that a criminal record result was returned. It can be a speeding ticket. That's probably a common thing that you'll see on many people. Oftentimes it's a misdemeanor that you see. However, sometimes the criminal record result will return a felony. At that point, it's an issue file. More follow-up is required, and Deb's going to talk about that in a little bit, how you handle issues that come up.
So basically,
on the
Nancy,
results that are
anytime they have a fail instead of a pass or a review, to get the detail, they need to log into their First Advantage LexisNexis account, or if they don't know how or aren't successful, that's when they would call. Is that right?
You call the 800 number if you need help logging in. And also, Al, we might point out this kind of indigo blue ink up here where it says link to LexisNexis screening result.
Right.
From the software, when you click on that, it will automatically take you to the login page out at First Advantage LexisNexis.
Right.
So that's kind of good to realize we have that help there. But absolutely what Al said is if this is all clear and passed, that's what you see in the software. But anytime you need more detail, you have to go to the website and look at the actual screen result. So what we're showing here is sort of the summary result, but the detail of a screen you have to get actually from the website, the First Advantage LexisNexis website. Was there another question?
There's a couple. Early on, we had a question of where do pastors and other clergy show on the left?
Okay, pastors and clergy do not show up in the local church software, and that's a privacy kind of confidentiality situation. Pastors are required by the bishop in order to have an appointment. They're required to be conference safe sanctuary certified. That means that in order to be conference safe sanctuary certified, all pastors are asked to go through the conference sanctuary office to be initialized or started on their training. We don't allow and don't want the local church LCA people to initialize or start the pastor's process, and we don't allow them to view the clergy records or details.
Another question is, should they print the forms for a local file, or should they print the forms for the local file?
The advantage of using the local church online software, there are several advantages that I mentioned to people on the phone. One of the key advantages is that the database stores all of your records for local church certification. So the background results are stored out in the cloud. So we always have that record. The references are stored. All of the records on your people are kept track of. So you don't need to keep a paper file. Some churches probably have paper records if they kept a separate local church certification file in the past. But going forward, once you're on this process, if you are using it for local church certifications, you won't need to have, I would say, very minimal paper records. Occasionally, somebody may send you a reference that you would have by paper, but I think it won't be, probably not very often, that would happen. So.
And we do have a few more coming in here, Nancy. Do you want to keep covering these?
Yeah, I think we'll keep going.
Okay. Then next question is, can they enter local church certification only on Mission Connect?
Yes. That's one of the options when you initialize somebody. You can initialize them for local church certification only. So there's three options: local church certification only. You may have somebody that only needs conference certification because they're only going to be involved in an activity like camp counselor or whatever it is, only conference activity, and they're never going to volunteer at the nursery. Or you may have somebody that needs both local church and conference. So all three options are available.
We have a two-part question here. Can duplicate records be changed to where there is one? And then also, what if the church members do not have internet or email? How can they be certified?
So let's answer the first question first. On duplicate records, it depends on the reason why there's a duplicate. Sometimes, especially I know in Safe Sanctuary conference records, in the past we had the way a background screen came in, sometimes we would have a record that had all of the training and references and everything completed, but a background screen would come in later on a separate record. So sometimes there are where the person's listed twice in a list, and that just is fine. It is what it is. It doesn't change the certification date or cause any problems. So sometimes there is a duplicate name in the list for that reason. Al, I'm trying to remember if we've had some other reasons. We do have a process where we match and we can merge duplicate files if it really is a duplicate. For example, we saw somebody today who had a file that had their first name and their last name, but then there was another file that had their first name on it and their middle name and last name. So we have a mechanism where we can merge files in those situations. Al, do you want to talk about that too? Is there another situation?
Occasionally, you will see someone doubled up in the tree in the same category. That's usually because the person, it's one record internally, but for whatever reason, the person has two different user accounts into the database. That's been a problem we've struggled with because if some people will, maybe they sign up for camp and this is all the same database, and so they create another account for themselves. Somebody in the conference office catches it and merges the two records internally in terms of the data on the person, but they still have two user accounts into the database. And we're kind of struggling. We will find a way to handle those automatically, but frankly, it hasn't been the highest priority because it's not really causing a problem other than visually showing up twice. The way you can tell that is if the person's in the list twice, and I can use one of these from two different categories here. If they're in the list twice, and you look at their records, and they're the exact same records in both listings, then you know that's really the same record in the database, but listed twice in the tree. It's going to always be the case if they're in different categories, but if we saw Addison Angel in the church certified list twice, the same records, it just means that somehow she ended up with two different logins into the database. Same person, same records, 2 points of access. And we're still trying to find the most elegant way to handle that. Not being absolutely sure which one we should shut down, because that may be the one that she's actually using, and the other one she may have forgotten about. But it's not a big deal. It's not really causing any problems other than visually listed twice.
One thing to caution as an LCA, if you initialize somebody, one time I saw this example, like maybe you initialized somebody in March and the person didn't do anything, then somebody initialized that person again in September or October, the LCA did. So try not to initialize the same person like multiple times. You can click the user account management and resend them their login information if they need that. That type of thing, but we're kind of trying to avoid, a lot of times we get, when LCA is learning, we might get multiple emails and, multiple listings initiated, so kind of try to be careful of that. Also, we can help sometimes if there's multiple files, kind of clean up that record. So let's move on to one other point. If the local church chooses not to use references on the setting page, and the applicant later on, they start out local church certified and later on need conference, the applicant can request reference to certified. We want to make a note about confidentiality, just emphasize how important the LCA role is in terms of confidentiality of passwords. Not sharing passwords, just that security is very, very important. Also, that you have access to personal and sensitive information, such as addresses, and really the learners expect to keep that information private. So if the local church needs address information or some other information like that on a member, there's other ways that they need to get that information, and the LCA should not be information that comes through this process. One other information thing for LCAs that we've noticed, sometimes an LCA is sharing email with their spouse, and that causes a couple problems. Sometimes we can't tell who is the LCA, the husband or the wife or whatever it is. So, and also the church has really designated one person as the LCA, not like both people. So we really are strongly encouraging the LCAs to kind of move to getting a single email for the person that is doing the LCA role. I think now we're ready to move on to the certification authority. And Bev Fulmer's here. I'll let her brief introduction.
Okay.
Yes, Al?
And there are still 2 or maybe even 3 unanswered questions. We can come back around to those after Bev does her thing, or however you want to do it.
Let's come back to those so that maybe we can, if anybody needs to get off, then they can leave, and people that need to stay will keep doing questions towards the end.
And they can all see what the questions were, so if they want to stay for the answer, they can.
Okay.
I will share a bit about the certification authority. You all are called the local church assistant to Safe Sanctuaries, and you need to have set up in your local church a certification authority. Many of these decisions that are being made, when they come back all clear, it's fine for you to go ahead and certify them. But if there's ever an issue or a red flag in any of the areas, such as the application, if they answered a question with a yes, if they have a reference, if you're using references and there is a reference that did not mark always or marked with some reservation, made some kind of comment about the suitability of this person, then that would be another time where you should not be having to make the decision by yourself. And the other would be is if there's anything came back on the background screen that would be not clear, that are pass. If you had a fail anywhere, then that is another issue file. And it's the certification authority then that reviews these persons that have red flags or issues. And the certification authority, we recommend that it be at least 3 people, and that they can be, and it's also, I think, helpful if the certification authority is a group of people that can be there for several years. It gives them a background. It also helps them in making decisions. I know that for some, this has been a real struggle, being a part of a certification authority. Some of you in some churches may never have an issue file. There are not very many issue files. Even here at the conference level, the number of issue files that we've had to deal with over the years have been minimal for the thousands that have come through. So on any given local church, the certification authority may never meet, or at least if they do, it's a rare occasion. The certification authority, though, will review. We recommend that the pastor at least be a part of that, whether they're official or unofficial, but I think it's important for them to be a part of the certification authority meetings so that they can hear the discussion that happens. Some of them will be a part of it as an official capacity. You all can be a part of it as an official capacity, or you could be the person that's just bringing the information. But who in the church can handle the confidentiality, who can make decisions on a level keel, I guess would be the one way, that isn't going to become emotionally involved and be making decisions out of an emotional situation, that has a level head, that has a passion for youth and children. So those are the kinds of things, but it's going to be a little bit different in terms of who you choose from church to church. And I would not do it necessarily just by office. So because if you say, well, our admin council chair is going to be a part of the certification authority, in some churches that changes every year. And I think there is some importance to having some continuity in that certification authority, because they will have information over the long haul about what happens should you ever have an issue file. So as you named that. What are some of the issues of denial? Again, you need to make those decisions. For us, if they are on probation for anything, it's an automatic denial, with the idea that, they could come, once they are off probation, they can reapply. They can come again. There are some things that are definitely never would be a block, I guess, according to the things that Al showed us earlier. If they have been accused of child abuse or convicted of child abuse, that's a block. That's pretty much a no-brainer. But then you get into all the gray areas. So every file needs to be dealt with on an individual basis. To try to start making bunches of blankets, I think it just creates more issues. So I don't know if you have other questions about the certification authority role. One of the things that it is important, and you can either do it with the certification authority or a separate committee totally, but in many churches I know that's the committee that reviews the policy regularly every year to make sure there's no changes that need to be made, any updates, any of that kind of thing. You need to have a certification authority, and I'm not sure all the churches yet have gotten to that point, mostly because they haven't maybe had an issue, but you need to be prepared just in case.
Okay, a couple other points I want to make, and we're going to let Al cover a couple things too, and then we'll close and do questions. I wanted to just let everybody know, you may have noticed, but as we make changes and revisions, tweaks to the software, as we're developing new aspects, each time you log in, when there has been a change, a new version will automatically upload or download. I'm not sure the exact term there. And so just go ahead and let it go through the upload step. and that way you'll have the latest version of the software. Just wanted to kind of make people aware that that's a natural process that's going to happen with the software. Another thing to mention is we are working on having a certification status report available. Right now on the conference website, we have available the conference certification status. We hope to be able to display people that are conference certified as well as local church certified. So that will be a helpful resource, we hope, too, in the future. Al, we didn't cover secure note field. I'm not sure if we want to kind of mention that.
Yeah, I will briefly. I think that's the only piece on my list that wasn't covered yet.
Okay.
We've recently added a new field. We call it a secure note, so that you can add a new note to anybody's record. This is a new note. I'm not very creative at 6:30 in the evening. So you can do that. It does tag the note with the person who's added it, whoever's logged in, and the date. So if you have multiple LCAs or if you change over time, you'll have an idea when and who entered the note. That could be especially helpful with some of those special steps. We call it secure in that only people who have a login to your church in the software will be able to see that. It's also encrypted in the database, so it allows you to put somewhat sensitive data in there if you need to.